Hello and welcome to the Outside the Box Football Podcast. I'm joined by Football League coach and ex-football grassroots player, I should say.
Current football
Current.
grassroots.
Oh, current. Okay, there we
Yeah,
go. Current is
still
Ben.
playing.
Ben, how we doing, mate?
Yeah,
All right?
yeah, very good. Thank you. It's good to be here. Thanks for
Amazing.
having me on.
Tell you what, today couldn't get better. I'm sat here talking to Ben, and Reading FC have won an away game for the first time since
Rarity these days.
2001. First time since 2001. We've won away at Blackpool. 3-0 win. Ben, thoughts on that game?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, well, as you said, we don't normally win. We don't normally win at all this season, but we've we've got something to show for ourselves, so that's nice. Well, from what I've heard, I need to watch the highlights, but Daniel Cherawa, good game.
Yes, very much so.
Which I think we needed. We needed the wingers to really, him and Paddy Lane, just needed someone to really boost their confidence. I think that could be the one.
For sure. Now, moving away from Reading FC, today we're going to be talking about
Yeah.
something a little bit more important, I'd say. We're going to be talking about youth football. Now, this is something that I've kind of done a little bit of research in. Ben, you're very familiar with it. So I want to get it started off clean and simple, Ben. How important is youth football to you?
Well, I think for me at least, it's the base of just playing sports and getting involved in things, and obviously, well, not for me now that I'm sort of 17, 18, not really academies is not anything I'm looking at.
For sure.
But yeah, obviously it's a big sort of staple point for academies and going in that direction. But yeah, for me, grassroots football is just it's just getting the opportunity to have a kick around, do what I enjoy doing, and it's like everyone says, relieve stress, that sort of thing. It's a nice one. It's easy.
For sure. So when someone is little, for example, when a kid's just trying to start football, going into that grassroots sector, if you will, is so important for them. Learning skills like teamwork, like adaptability, things like that is just really, I'd say, like the building blocks of growing up, I should say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's sort of that is what people think of. It is what it is. You join at a young age and you just build up from there. I mean, I started I think about 8. Some people I know started from 6, 5 or 6. So, yeah, it's a good way to start. And obviously, I mean, you're starting off at a young age, and the coaches know that. So, you're learning the basic skills, and people know you're not going to be trying anything special. It's just a good way to get started.
For sure. And I think, when you are growing up, when you've kind of played football for a little bit, when you're, 6 or 7 years old, you start to take it a little bit seriously. And, I still got to take it seriously. I'm laughing here. Sort of when you're that sort of age, you're kind of trying to learn and develop in how you play your own game. And sometimes a lot of people and a lot of kids are set apart from the rest. And that's when, things like independent coaching comes in, when a parent might take the kid to a side with, a one-on-one session with a coach. I know that's stuff that you've previously done before, Ben. What insight can you give into that? How important is that for somebody getting into
Yeah,
football?
yeah. I mean, it really depends on how much they want to do it. If you're growing up, like so many people do at that age, they want to become a professional footballer. They want to be playing at Wembley, see their name in the front page of the news sort of thing. And I think that's where it boils down to is how much do you want it. So then you look to the independent coaches or even just trying to do what you can in the park with your dad or your mum. But for me, I had a bit of time with an independent goalkeeper coach. I'm a goalkeeper myself, and that was really interesting actually. Just getting a different sort of viewpoint, a different style of coaching where it's just you and the coach. You can really focus, like hone in on all the stuff you're not so strong at. I think that's what really starts to set people apart. Is just instead of being training with the team or training with lots of people where you're all developing for one goal, you're instead focusing on all the things you want to improve in your own game, and that's what really starts to make the difference
For sure.
at that young age.
Definitely. I was a bit of a late bloomer when it came to football. I watched it from. Now I'm
Start of
thinking.
bloomed.
I'd say, yeah. I'd say, shut up. I started watching football. I'd say from maybe 10 or 11, and that was going down to the Majayskis. I think it was my first season was 2017, which we actually came third and lost the playoff final. So not off to a great start. But that's when I started watching football. And then obviously lockdown happened after that, and I kind of got into football in lockdown, and that was from independent coaching, where not by a professional, obviously by my dad, just taking me to a park in early, just playing football there I think it was every Friday in lockdown. That really got me into it. So then after all the rules and everything were loosened a bit, I went and joined a grassroots team in Berks Elite. That was I was goalkeeper myself as well. Semi-retired at the moment, only going for the old five-a-side. But I feel like going to that sort of level in the independent coaching can really boost somebody's football ability. Like I had a goalkeeper coach at Berks Elite called Dimmy, for what I can remember, and he was West Ham's goalkeeper coach, and he was really good. And I think his sort of level of expertise, coaching, game, game sense, if you will, I think that obviously rubs off on somebody who could be quite impressionable in a child or somebody who's a young adult trying to get into football. And I think independent coaching is an absolutely huge factor in how some people make it in getting into youth football and obviously maybe academies later on down the line.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and it's like you said, if you find the right coach, for example, like you did, I mean, it can really be the difference between making it or not.
For sure.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree with that. Yeah.
Definitely. So after somebody would set themselves apart from the rest of their team. They might be playing in a higher youth league like a Div 1, Div 2, Div 3, whatever you want to call it. And that leads to scouts coming to games. Now, I'm slightly familiar with scouting and what goes on between, word of mouth scouting, then you've got people looking at data and stuff in the really high leagues. Ben, what impact can scouting play on a player, if you will, in the youth leagues?
Well, I mean, that is that is what everyone thinks of when you talk about breaking into these pro teams. Whether it be a Premier League scouting establishment or whether it's just your bog standard National League team, League One, League Two sort of thing. It all really it's down to the scouting, and there's so many different ways to go about doing so. Obviously, everyone has this idea of you're going to be playing playing on a Saturday or a Sunday, and someone in a big trench coat comes along with his notepad, and what is it? You score from outside the box, writes your name down. End of the game, he comes over and he sort of says, what's your name, son? We'd like you to come play for Chelsea, sort of thing. That sort of thing. That's a lot of people think, and that is part of it. But I think there's so much more behind it. So many different ways as well that I think some people just aren't as aware of, and maybe if they were, and maybe that's why we're doing this podcast. It just gives you that other idea, other senses of how you can get there. But,
For sure.
So yeah, obviously playing well and getting your name out there, word of mouth, like you said, is such a great way to give yourself the best chance, but also doing well as a team, because that is what football is at the end of the day. It's a team performance. So cup finals and tournaments, that sort of thing is really, that's where people are going to be. That's where people are going to be keeping an eye out. So that sort of thing, and then you've even got the actual setups where you go along, say, listen, I believe that I can play for your team. I want to show you my abilities, and you go along, do the best you can. Not everyone's going to make it. People will get turned away. That's the reality of football, and it's a harsh environment. But you just have to give yourself the best chance. There's no reason to not try as much as you can if that's really where you want to end up in
For sure.
the future.
Definitely. And we talked about this before we started recording. When you break through to that first team in the sort of academy setup after being scouted and whatnot, there are some really inspiring examples of this. I know you found, I think, was it Tyrone Mings, Ben?
Tyrone Mings is a great example. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so when I looked into him, he played for Chippenham FC, not a team I know much about, but a grassroots team nonetheless. Um, and he said, I believe he was playing. He started playing at 4, playing 2 years up with the under sixes, um, and he just had a passion for the game that I think so many people have nowadays. He kept at it and got scouted by Southampton, I believe, and that's really where he started his journey. But also, interestingly, where some people would have thought it could have ended,
Oh,
as he
do
got
tell.
released by Southampton in I believe when he was 15, was released by Southampton, ended up in a homeless shelter. From what I read, obviously struggling to make ends meet, but he had the desire, the love for the game, kept going, and ended up being scouted by Ipswich when playing for Chippenham Town. So a really interesting story, and just shows, like I was talking about earlier, you have to have that desire to do well. That's what I mean. It's a tale in life. Not just football. You have to be really willing to give it everything you've got. If you want to achieve something, that's what you've got to do. You've got to make sacrifices, and obviously, well, I don't. I'll be perfectly honest. I don't keep up with Tyrone Mings's performances, but as far as I'm aware, he's doing pretty well for himself.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I reckon only slightly better than me and you though, Ben.
You could say that, I suppose.
You could say that, and taking Tyrone Mings for example, I think one aspect of football in the youth setups and academies, that when you really get to a high level and you get told by people that you're going to be this, you're going to be the next great thing, you're going to be this, you're going to be whatever you want to call it. I think those high expectations for youth players must be really hard. Like I can kind of see a
Yeah.
side of where you start football by it becoming a fun team sport with your friends, and it's a endorphin releaser, whatever you want to call it, and then having that sort of side of it being completely sucked out by performances, analysts. What else you got? The sort of pressure of wanting to be good enough, which can obviously probably take a massive toll on players' mental health.
Yeah, and I think that's where so many people, especially in their youth, really struggle because it's such a demand. I mean, a friend of mine actually, he was being scouted by Fulham, Swansea, a couple of other teams like that, and he just couldn't find the time to balance his studies and that sort of thing, and also just giving it so much. They require so much, and he just such a good footballer, but he really couldn't find the balance. I
Mm,
think that's why so many people at that age fall down, is because, I mean, football is a harsh environment. It's not for the weak at all, um, and I think it's just a struggle, especially at a youth age. You're being asked so much. The coaches are really, I mean, they want the best for you. They really want to make you the best player they can, but to do that, you really have to give it your all, and that's something that can just be such a blockade for some players.
for sure.
But I think if you can find that balance, that in between of being the best footballer you can, but also being the best person you can, and living the best, most enjoyable life, because that's what football is. That's why we all play football, is to enjoy it. I think if you can find that balance, and it's hard, it's not an easy thing at all, and I think a lot of people need to understand that. If you can find that balance, you really will start to excel and start to see a real sort of possibility and potential in yourself.
Certainly, you know, we're going to go for a bit of a slight transition here. That's the personal side. That's the player's sort of aspect of how
Yeah.
important youth football is. But I think from a professional club side of things, it can look slightly differently. Having
Mm.
so with professional football clubs, they've got, if you have an academy, it goes into categories. The best being Cat One, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for teams looking to make a profit, academies can be so important, right? Because when you send out your scouts
Yeah.
to
100%. Yeah.
these youth league games and whatnot, and you find a talent, and then years later they go on and they to break into the first team, they do well, and eventually get sold for a profit. That's a zero to profit. That's 100% profit, which on a professional side of football things can go into things like transfer budget, wages, whatever you want to call it. I think it could be a gamble for football clubs as well. I think if you can't afford an academy and you don't have the sustainability to have an academy, it can be super tough for clubs. Whereas, and that probably sets apart some clubs from others. For example, let's take Reading FC, for example, right? League One at the moment, obviously, will be in the Championship, but in the next 2 years, I think. Fingers crossed, all goes well under Sir Rob Couhig. I think I shouldn't say Sir really. Leader Rob Couhig, there we go. President, there we go. American guy. Hopefully, with these academy players, we've got a setup there that can afford an academy. We bring in enough money, we sell enough players, we bring in an academy, hunky dory. You know what I mean? Like those players that we can produce from the academy gives us one, squad depth, which over the last couple of years we've needed, and two, profits, right? And I think from that side of things, it can generate extra income and revenue compared to a team, let's say Fleetwood, for example, right? I know that's probably not the best example in terms of club size, but Fleetwood don't have the money to have an academy. So they're obviously going to be at a disadvantage going into professional league games. So it all starts at the bottom for a club who wants to progress up the leagues with youth setup, scouting, academies, transfer business, whatever you want to call it. I think it's so important. And going on to the point I made on squad depth, you look at teams like Reading FC a few years ago, right? Completely thrown under the bus by ex-owner Dai Yong. We couldn't bring in any players, financial restrictions, the whole lot, right? Those academy players stepped up when they needed to, and completely filled in those positions. Obviously, we couldn't expect them to be the next Kevin De Bruyne, the next Ronaldo, the next Messi, we want to call it, but they did well. And without that academy beforehand, we wouldn't have had the squad depth, we wouldn't have had anything to try and produce that. Another example recently is Sheffield Wednesday going through the exact same thing. They're in administration trying to find new buyers and hopefully do better. But again, their academy and their youth setup has allowed them to produce talents like Charles in goal, who has been a crucial player for them this season. You've got players like against Leeds, for example, a lot of their, in the Carabao Cup, a lot of their players were academy players in that starting 11, and they beat a Premier League side just from academy players in the Carabao Cup. Like, it's huge for clubs to have a good youth intake every single year.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And I mean, I like to, one of the things I sort of personally think, and you can comment on this whether you agree or disagree, but I think that Reading FC's academy is what kept the club alive.
Oh, I agree. 100% agree with you.
Yeah, and it's just, during that awful period with Dai Yong, I think it was those players that came through our academy, gave us, like you said, a squad at that, at the forefront. We had a squad. We were playing games with those academy players, but also gave us the money. Like, if I may, bring in Michael Elise. I know you were planning to talk about him, but we got money off of the back of Michael Elise's sale to Bayern Munich from Crystal Palace. I think that it's such a tough time for the club. Obviously, talking from personal sort of experience and stuff as a Reading fan, the both of us, that was what kept the lights on. That's what kept the fans believing, kept us hoping, and kept the club just crawling to that final sale in the summer to Rob Couhig.
Certainly, I think on the Michael Elise thing, I think that's an example of somebody from an academy being sold on for huge profits to Crystal Palace a few years ago. That's we sold him for 7 mil. That's an immediate 7 mil profit for the club. Obviously, didn't go to good use because we had a transfer embargo the next season. But again, it's just big money. And then even then, going on to his sale to Bayern Munich, as you said a minute ago, that kept the lights on. That money kept us going throughout the first bit of last season. And I think without the academy set up and without him, definitely would have been a different story for us. And then you've got I know we are Cat 1 Academy, but we're not in the Premier League, right? You look at the Premier League academies producing these outrageous talents, okay? You look at Arsenal, yeah. Max Dowman, Nweri, Lewis Skelly. These players have come through academy with no previous footballing experience in the leagues. I'm fairly certain with those three, and immediately broke into the first team. Like the youth setup there is so so important because a Premier League player nowadays can probably cost you upwards of £10 million, and that's not cheap for a club that, you know, that's again, no, it's just not cheap anyway for whatever you want to call it. Premier League players are few and far between, and if you can produce Premier League players through your academy that can turn an 100% profit when you sell them or whatever you want to do with them, it can be massive. I mean, as I said a minute ago, Arsenal obviously done that over a couple of years. A big one as well, Man City. You look at Foden, you look at Oscar Bob, you look at Rico Lewis. These players have immediately come into a Man City side that have been winning league titles constantly, and they're straight in. You know, Kobe Mainoo from Man United, when they were going through a bit of regression in the last couple of years, stepped up when he needed to be, came through the academy, came straight into the first team. All of a sudden, he's one of the best players on the team. You know what I mean? I think these sort of top level academies just produce outrageous players.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It's just ridiculous when you look at the some of the players at the top, Ballon d'Or rankings, all of that sort of thing. If you look at it, and it's the academies they came from, I mean, you just wonder how do they keep consistently bringing out all these players, and that's something I may never get to the bottom of because it's just ridiculous. But I think one of the things, and as you were talking, I just thought of this now. One of the things that you get from these academy players, which is so vital and so helpful for a team, like you said with Man United, who was struggling a bit, and the Kobe Mainoo example is he's, as far as I'm aware, Manchester United born and bred.
Yeah.
And that's something he's come through the ranks at Man United. He's pulled himself through the ranks. He's wanted it. He wants to play for Man United. I think that's one of the things that really can set apart a player. Sure, you can buy players from wherever you want to buy them from. All across the world. You can get the players in, but I think that's that love for the club, that sort of playing with, like playing with your heart on your sleeve. That's sort of saying. I think that really can set aside a player, and that's why some of these players, these youth players, go on to do so well because they want to see the club that they're playing for do as well as they can, so they're willing to put absolutely everything in, even at the Max Dowman, 15 years old.
I know,
sort
mental.
of age, and he's got that sort of desire. I mean, that's something that just doesn't go unmissed. You get what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think without the few, in the next couple of years, we've been seeing it with Arsenal, for example, 15 years old with Max Dowman. I think it's going to sound a bit crazy, but I think we'll slowly but surely see younger and younger players being brought on for debuts. Like you used to think, let's say 4 years ago, right? Young player debut, 18, 19, 20 even. Now, 15 making a Premier League debut.
Yeah.
Mental. I think it was in Nweri, was he 15 as well? Against Brentford was his debut, I think.
He was.
Something like that.
They he's young when they're chanting. He's got school in the morning.
Yeah.
That should say it all really in terms of a player and their age. It's ridiculous some of the kids that they're putting on the pitches now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that is all the time we've got today, Ben. But thank you for coming on the podcast, mate. Really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Perfect. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.